Hello and thank you for joining us here at Movie Mindset. A documentary known as Wild Wild Country Part 1 is going to be reviewed in its entirety today. Released in the year 2018. Watch out and take care. The tale revolves around a controversial guru who creates a utopian city in the middle of the Oregon desert, which leads to a significant dispute between the guru and the local ranchers. The struggle is chronicled in this documentary, which details the events leading up to the first bioterrorist strike to occur in the United States, as well as a significant instance of illegal eavesdropping. The tolerance of the United States during this time period for the institutional separation of religion and state was put to the test, yet it is a period of American cultural history that is mostly forgotten now. In the first episode, Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh, a spiritual guru, decides to relocate his ashram from India to a rural part of Oregon in 1981, while his secretary, Mayan and Sheila, keeps a watchful eye on the situation. Will the guru and those who follow him be successful in convincing the town's citizens to take actions that represent their genuine desires? Will the citizens of Antelope learn the truth about Guru Rajneesh's motivations and objectives? To find out, you'll have to keep watching until it's through. At the beginning of the episode, interviews are conducted with elderly people who claim to have direct knowledge of personal experience with Guru Rajneesh and his followers. It is requested that the individuals discuss their personal histories. Antelope, which is located in Wasco County, Oregon, is described by them as being a very distant and isolated place with few resources. They say that this is where their community is located. In the documentary, residents of Antelope, California, discuss the year 1981, which was the year when the cult led by Guru Rajneesh arrived in their community. Antelope was a small town that was mostly populated by elderly people and had a total population of less than 50. They had a really strong feeling of belonging to the community. Everyone took part in the religious activities and many of the other celebrations that were going on. In the documentary, an elderly man recalls a time when the residents of Antelope were living out their final years in peace and were told about a wealthy guru who had recently moved to the area and purchased a large ranch that encompassed 80,000 acres. At the time, the residents of Antelope were preparing to pass away. The citizens of the community were amused, while also showing signs of worry about the situation. An elderly couple says that they were worried when they saw new people moving into their town since they did not have any contact with the locals and did not know what the newcomers were doing there. Every time they saw those folks pass by, the residents of Antelope became more bewildered and interested in them. People say that those new people had all the roads surrounding them blocked so that people wouldn't get a glimpse of what they were truly brewing, and people recount how this happened. It didn't take long for the inhabitants of the town to figure out that the folks who lived on the ranch had begun expanding the region by erecting concrete structures and a number of other amenities. The individuals who lived on the ranch made significant headway and expansion within a week or two. They would buy the rough rural land and start building there. They would bring with them mobile homes, building materials, pottery, and other things that helped them expand their territory. The town's good citizens were under the impression that the wealthy man's guru and his followers had come to town with a specific mission in mind. However, none could have anticipated that it would develop into something of the magnitude that it did. The guru's minions and his secretary had traveled to the town with what seemed to be the intention of cultivating their property, practicing their religion, and getting along with their new neighbors. But according to what the locals say, the genuine beginning of the decline of the village was when Sheila arrived there. The Rajneesh Foundation was under Mayan and Sheila's direct management. She described herself as the personal secretary of the Bhagwan, as well as the spokeswoman for the organization. The residents of Antelope are quoted in the video as saying that, from their perspective, she was in charge of controlling the whole commune, which the residents of the town were initially unaware of. As time went on, the people's suspicions about Bhagwan's faithful lieutenant, Sheila, were shown to be correct. Her actual goals were revealed, and the religious mask that she had been using to disguise her face was removed from her. Sheila referred to herself as a helpless victim of the natural world who had nothing to lose. She persuaded individuals to join Bhagwan by presenting them with compelling beliefs that ran entirely counter to their norms and traditions. This would encourage them to follow Bhagwan. She went on to tell the guests how she first started on her spiritual path. According to what she said, the movement started in India in 1968. Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, also known as Osho, was attracting tens of thousands of followers to each of his public events. While his followers practiced a dynamic kind of meditation, Osho talked to his followers on many topics, including sexuality, spirituality, and capitalism. When Sheila, who was just 16 years old at the time, went to see Osho for the first time, she was immediately drawn to him. Her family quickly became proficient in Osho's language and began making frequent visits to his place in the United States. Sheila looked up to Osho as his teacher and found both verbal and nonverbal cues from him to be a source of motivation. As a result, he made her his faithful right hand and made her the administrator in charge of handling the millions of dollars belonging to the organization. As word spread about the uncovered cult, Westerners started making their way to India to be a part of the movement. Soon after, Guru and his gang, who are now infamous for being a questionable cult, came to the conclusion that they needed to construct a commune for their Western supporters, but they ran into political opposition in India. After hearing about the United States Constitution from a Westerner, the group concluded that the perfect site for them would be the best location for them to put their way of life into action. After that, they uprooted their lives and moved to Antelope. There, they bought an 80,000-acre ranch and started working right away to make the area more mobile and easy to get to. Because Antelope was completely cut off from the rest of the United States and its legal system, they believed that there would be fewer opportunities for them to be apprehended there, as well as more opportunities for them to engage in activities in which they excelled. As a result, they decided to relocate there. According to Sheila, who was also interviewed for the documentary, Osho was at the pinnacle of his career when she first met him. He was a man of modernity and flair, and the intellectuals were moved by the compelling arguments he presented. He made a plea to those living in contemporary times who were bored with their routine lives, felt they had no reason to live, or had nothing to lose by changing their lives. He had a magnetic presence and a vivacious energy that could quickly illuminate large groups of people. His remarks possessed power. The people would weep and worship him by prostrating themselves before him to the point that they felt he was a god. They would prostrate themselves before him, hand him millions of dollars, and carry out any other request that the Guru had for them. Guru used contemporary approaches to achieve his recognition at the time. He wrote novels that were full of ideas that stirred people, and he published such books. In the documentary, Sheila discusses her own personal experiences with Guru from the very beginning to the very end, and vehemently defends each and every one of the horrific acts that she has carried out in the name of Guru Rajneesh. The documentary series has featured a number of individuals who, at one point in their lives, worshipped Bhagwan Osho. During the course of the research, it was discovered that a lady from Western Australia had attended Osho's seminars. She claims that her marriage was troubled and chaotic during their whole relationship. Even the birth of a son was not enough to heal her. It was 1966, and her marriage was on the brink of coming to an abrupt and dramatic end. Her neighbors provided her with the address of a therapist and recommended that she and her family speak with the therapist's assistant. At that time, Mrs. Roger was unable to determine what the object in question truly was. People living in the area might be identified by the orange robes and beads they wore on their bodies. Both Mr. and Mrs. Roger had their eyes covered with blindfolds, and they were instructed to breathe quickly and forcefully. It came out that the treatment was a kind of dynamic meditation, which was a synthesis of several psychological treatments and Hinduism. Mrs. Roger recalls that during their development, they were instructed to participate in a variety of hyperactive activities. As a first step, they were instructed to breathe heavily. Then they were to scream and shout and release all of their anger. Following that, they were to put their hands in the air, jump up and down, and scream hoo-hoo non-stop. Finally, they were instructed to lie down on the ground, close their eyes, and become silent. The goal of the meditation was to subtly convince the people that they were under the command of a superior figure to whom they were obligated to submit. Despite the fact that elevating a normal human being who has the same characteristics as you to the status of God is a foolish act, thousands of people in the West were led astray by a fraudulent guru who believed he was God and coerced people into worshiping him and performing actions for him without compensation. In any case, Mrs. Rogers claims that she had never experienced the live presence of Osho before. Up until this point, they had only been meditating in front of photos of Osho. She engaged in conversation with individuals who had just returned from the holy shrine known as Guru Rajneesh Sashram, which was situated in Pune, India. They reported to Mrs. Rogers that they had the opportunity to weep for an uncountable number of hours while sitting at Bhagwan's feet. Mrs. Rogers' impatience grew to the point where she just could not wait to pay a visit to the great Bhagwan. In the end, the pair decided to pay Bhagwan a personal visit, and they talk about their thoughts and observations throughout the video. According to Sheila, Bhagwan was attempting to persuade the Western audience that they had prioritized consumerism above spirituality. Sheila explains that this was Bhagwan's target demographic. He would encourage them to be open about their sexualities and would frequently hold nude rituals in which people could mix whatever they wanted and shout his name. He would also encourage them to be honest with each other about their sexualities. Because those who felt hopeless and whose lives had no purpose and who were certain to be lost could identify with Bhagwan's beliefs, and, without a single thought, they would worship him as their god. He was successful in establishing a vast audience of the same sort. Indeed, Bhagwan had an excellent understanding of financial matters. His musings, which might be seen as a product, were the products that brought in the money that allowed him to carry out the task that he had planned to perform. Sheila admits in a straightforward manner that she is not one of the people who worships since she did not find the meditating part to be enlightening. Working with Bhagwan Osho was enjoyable for her, since she was able to learn about his skills as a marketer and the pathways to success that he followed. She says that her job as a Bhagwan preacher gave her the knowledge she needed to set up a capitalist working society. Sheila discusses the financial aspects of the house developments in Antelope. She used her guile to convince between 3,000 and 4,000 meditators who were staying at the Indian ashram to lend her the money. She provides a detailed account of how she amassed the funds by establishing a bank in a single night and was deposited with thousands of dollars that continued to come in throughout the night. Not only was extracting the money an act of deceit on Guru Osho and Sheila's part, but they also put their meditators to work for them so that they wouldn't have to do any of the manual labor. They did not pay their sannyasins despite the fact that they utilized them to construct homes for them, sew clothing for them, supply medication, and engage in other duties. The more they did, the more successful they were, but in a murky and infamous manner proportional to the amount they accomplished. Guru Rajneesh's plan to build a commune in Antelope is successful thanks to the help of Sheila and his other blind disciples. Stay tuned in order to get our subsequent videos to find out what occurs next. Maintain your safety and happiness. Please subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one. Turn on alerts and support the channel by liking and commenting on videos. Thank you for your time.